Perfect. I think we are live now. Thank you for joining me, everyone. This is great to have you here. Uh, my name is Piyush Ranjan. I'm the founder and chief consultant of Management Masters. And today we are doing a live webinar on how to crack ISB PGP applications with some of the best, with some of the alumni from ISB who have gone into ISB. And again, after that, they have gone into diverse kind of careers post ISB. So we want to hear from them about their life experiences, what they did, how they worked at ISB, and how did ISB actually help them achieve their career goals that they wanted to. So a very quick introduction about me before we start. So my name is Piyush Ranjan, as I said. I graduated from IIT BHU in 2012 with a dual degree. After that, I worked for around 2 years before moving to Switzerland for my master's in management. I worked in Europe for almost 3.5 years before I returned back to India in 2019 and started management masters. Now, management masters was started in May 19, and since then we have focused on mostly the top programs worldwide, and at the same time we have also focused on deferred MBA programs. And through the last 3 years, what we have been able to achieve is essentially some admits to some of the top best MBA programs around the world, including M7 schools like Wharton, Kellogg, Columbia, Booth, INSEAD, LBS, and a host of others. But at the same time, I think one of the biggest successes that we have been with ISB, the Indian School of Business. So at ISB, over the last 3 years, we have had more than 45 applicants, of whom more than 35 people have received interview invites, and then 25 plus of them have received admits from ISB and have gone on to do their MBA from ISB. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our speakers for today. So we have Harsh, who graduated from ISB in 2015, and he's currently working as a senior PM at Microsoft. Harsh, maybe I could ask you to very quickly, briefly introduce yourself.
Hey folks, I'm Harsh, like Piyush already introduced me, I guess. Yeah, so I graduated from ISB in 2015 and then worked in a bunch of startups as a PM before moving to Microsoft. Mostly my career actually when I graduated from BHU back in 2011 has been into technology. I started my career as a software developer at Oracle and then moved to product management. I think ISB played out a great role in my pivoting from engineer to or a developer to a PM role. So that's a brief about me, but happy to discuss if there are more questions independently. Over to you, Piyush.
Thanks, Harsh. That's very nice of you and very aptly summarized regarding your journey. Apart from Harsh, we also have Sudhanshu Shekhar, who graduated from ISB last year, and he's currently heading an analytics startup, Sarthi.ai. So maybe Sudhanshu, you could tell us a bit more about what your journey has been like, and what exactly are you doing right now?
Thank you, Piyush. Hello, everyone. I am an engineering graduate from IIT BHU 2014 batch. And after working in analytics domain for almost 5 years, I decided to do MBA from ISB. And I did my MBA in strategy and finance. And then I took this role of head of analytics at a conversational AI company called Sarthi.ai. And I'm building the entire analytics function, and I'm reporting in the CEO's office.
Thank you so much, Sudhanshu. We also have Shikha with us. Shikha graduated from ISB this year, and she's currently working as a senior consultant at Kepler Canon. She is also ex-McKinsey, so she brings with her a lot of consulting experience. So maybe Shikha, if you could introduce yourself very quickly for us.
Sure. So hey everyone, Shikha this side. I've done my engineering from Delhi College of Engineering. I graduated in 2017. And then I spent almost 4 years with McKinsey across their data analytics, supply chain management, and procurement practices. And after 4 years with the firm, then I decided to go for my MBA. And the goal there was clear that I wanted to get into management consulting. So I had that field already at McKinsey, but I was mostly working on the analytics and the data side of things. So ISB turned out to be really helpful in, kind of pivoting from that analytics sort of a role to a proper strategy and management consulting role. And right now I'm working as a senior consultant at a boutique consulting firm called Kepler Canon. So yeah, back to you, Piyush.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Shikha. Now, as we dive deeper into the discussion, what we are going to talk about essentially is a lot in detail about how to approach the ISB applications. What are the things that candidates should keep in mind while they're preparing for their applications, and how exactly your particular experiences were at the school itself. I would also suggest if, let's say, if any of the people who are watching us, if they have any questions, please feel free to share in the chat box. We will have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end of the session. So please feel free to share your questions. Ask us anything that you would want us to sort of take up with Shikha, Harsh, and Sudhanshu, and we'll be happy to answer your questions and sort of move ahead with the session. So let's move ahead with the session. The first question that I have is essentially, what exactly, in your opinion or your experiences, what does ISB really look out for when it comes to its candidates? Maybe Harsh, you could start with this.
Okay, so I think first and foremost thing like ISB would look at if I think they're looking for good candidates, like that's a baseline. Um, and the definition of good candidate can have multiple facets, like someone who has done extraordinarily at their corporate or job or entrepreneurship level, someone who had a good ACAD, someone who had good extracurricular activities, or someone who actually who comes from a different background, like someone comes from sports or news anchor or so. So there are a variety of things that they look at, but broadly it filters down to something like what values that you bring to the cohort in general to the college, like what values do you add, and those in can be and the way you can do it is basically either have a good extracurricular or you have a good experience or you are academically good. And so that broadly one stroke is that. The second is basically um, they also look at how much clear you are about your future or what you want to do or what are your goals and how clear are you. So I think that's another important thing which I feel generally like people who try to apply at ISB, like I won't say everyone, but the people I have seen getting through ISB, they actually had clear goals for themselves. Like this is what they want to achieve in life, and which is tied to some of their stories back, like why they want to do it. It's not something like someone started, let's say, for someone is like a developer. Just taking a simple example, and someone wants to be an entrepreneur after ISB, but they don't know why. Like so, I think building that clarity is helpful, like why you want
Mhm,
to do it. ISB becomes a mode for that. I think
mhm,
broadly these two things that typically ISB will look at, like good candidate as in like your IQ, EQ level is great. I think that's what typically people look at. Then what values do you bring to ISB or the cohort in general? And third is how clear are you with your career goal? Yeah,
all right,
I think this
that,
is broadly I've seen as a trend that talking to different students who have graduated or even my batchmates when I look back. Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. But you see, there is one of the very strong myths that propagates in the market, right? When you talk to potential candidates or aspirants who are wanting to apply to ISBs, that there's often a feeling that there is a kind of set profile that ISB really looks out for, right? Or not just ISB, but any top B school that looks out for. So is that something which is true? Maybe Shikha or Sudhanshu, if you would want to take up this question.
Sure, I can add in on that. So there's actually not any set kind of a profile that ISB would look for. And I'll take an example from my batch only. Okay. So in any particular class, we had people from such diverse backgrounds. So we had military veterans with like 20, 25 years of experience. On the other hand, we had people who had their own successful startups, and they were getting into this PGP program to really push their startups to the next level, take their business to the next level. Then we also had people from like finance, consulting, and all sort of backgrounds. So people there, so again, this ties back to what Harsh says, right? So what essentially the baseline comes to is that what value add you are going to bring to the cohort, because there's this like set of 700-800 set of people, right, who are coming there with very set goals, and they have some clarity in mind about what they want to get out of ISB. So how as a person you are going to be adding to them, and to the cohort in general, because a lot of learning in ISB is like very in class learning. So you learn a lot about the comments that other people have on, let's say, if you're discussing a case in class. So those kind of discussions, right? So how are you going to add value to that? And the second thing, again, which ties to what Harsh says, is how ISB is going to be helpful. So if you say that, okay, 5 years down the line, this is my goal and this is where I am currently. So what they'll see is if ISB can actually be helpful for you to, get from point A to B. So that's the other thing that they'll look at. But there's not any kind of a set profile or, set things that they want you to tick off, that if these are not ticked off, then you will not be selected. So that's totally not true, I think.
All right. Sounds pretty nice. Sudhanshu, maybe to come to you, I'll change the question a little bit, right? Because a lot of candidates who come to us, they often ask us this question: MBA is something that they are planning to do because they also want to explore different options in their life, right? Yeah. They want to go for an MBA so that they can understand what kind of options exist and then take forward from there what they would want to do further, right? So if that is the case, is that something that you think is true, or that's something that ISB could help with? If that is true, then how does this play out? That you are supposed to have set goals, or you were supposed to talk about your short-term and long-term goals in the applications. So if you could sort of share some views on that.
Yeah. So if we talk about ISB MBA, so there are some basic set courses which are known as the core courses. And these core courses are around all the streams that we have, be it operations, be it marketing, be it branding, be it some data analytics courses, and be it something related to statistics and other things. So when you take all these courses, which are mandatory by nature in ISB, it gives you a holistic view. Right. So I'll share my example. So before coming to ISB, I was working as a data analyst itself, right? But my understanding, my view of things were limited. But after I took all these 33, 34 courses across different domains, it helped me expand my horizon of thinking. And now, as head of analytics, when I'm working through multiple teams, be it sales, be it HR, be it customer success, be it organizational behavior, structure, and other things, I have 101 knowledge, the basic understanding of all these subjects, and it is not difficult for me to further take it up and do some deep dive and success at it, excel at it, right?
Right.
And if I may add something to the previous question that was asked to Harsh and Shikha.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not about what ISB does for you. When ISB will select a particular person, ISB also thinks what this person can do for ISB, right? So you need to have some sort of exceptional background in whatever you have done in your life. Even if you are a chef, if you are a national level like chef who has come to some master chef or something like that, you will be selected. If you are a player, if you are a badminton player, cricket player, like in class of 23, we have someone who is a national level badminton player. So ISB encourages diversity and is looking for such candidates. It's not only about studies and academics.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let me come to, let's move forward and come to something which is a much more sort of controversial area when it comes to MBA applications, right? And that's essentially GMAT, GRE. What score is good enough? How much should you have? Without a 750, you will never get into ISB, or with, you have to take GMAT only. GRE is not worth it. So, coming to this, let's start with a basic question. Based on your experiences, all three of you, do you think there is any difference between taking GMAT or GRE and applying to ISB? Maybe we start again with Harsh.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't write GRE for ISB. When we applied, ISB only used to take GMAT. But what I have heard, this is overheard stories, not my personal experience, that it doesn't matter. There is a baseline that is set for GRE and GMAT, and which is based on your profile. So I don't think, like, if ISB is saying that they are okay with either of the score, they will either be biased to, they'll be biased towards any of the score. I don't think that's going to be a case. Else they might just stick to one particular exam. So
Right.
I think this is a fair, transparent system. Like generally, all colleges are fair and transparent. So I don't think it should matter much. But again, not my personal experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sudhanshu or Shikha, maybe to add on to this, if let's say if whether they matter or not, but what kind of scores would you also suggest are good scores to apply with? Is it something that you absolutely need to have a 730 in GMAT or a 335 in GRE? Or is that something of a myth that propagates within the system?
Sure. So, GMAT versus GRE, honestly, I've not seen like people getting rejected because they took a certain exam, right? In my batch, even in my, let's say, close group of friends, people were there who had like given GRE and GMAT. So we had a good mix of people. So like Harsh said, since ISB is allowing you to submit either of the scores, they are like quite okay with whatever scores you submit. Of course, then it needs to be on a certain level or whatever. But in terms of the kind of exam, you should probably base it on what you are comfortable with, because ISB is not going to be biased either towards GMAT or GRE. Like, and it's, you also need to understand it's only one of the many factors, right? Which ties into the second point, how much, and is there like a set level? So we have people with like over 750 GMAT, but I've also had people with less than 700 or 690 GMAT in my batch, right? So this again ties to the point that ISB is not looking at your GMAT or GRE score as a standalone thing. They're looking at your profile in the entirety. So they're looking at your academic achievements across the years. So not just GMAT, GRE, they'll also look at, how you were in your undergrad. Then there's the other aspect of your extracurriculars and the kind of work you've done, what are your achievements. So they're looking at your profile very holistically. And your score in these exams is one component there, right? So even if, let's say you have, for example, a 690 on your GMAT, but then your other facets are really good. And the school can see that, if this person comes into this particular batch, he or she is going to be like a great value add, right? So they're not going to be like, okay, just because this person did not have a 700 on GMAT, which is, let's say, our average score that goes out on, every website and everything. So they're not going to like deny you admission just based on that. So that's like, I think, one of the greatest things about ISB, that they really do look at your application holistically. So there's not any set bar in terms of the score that only based on your score you'll be rejected or accepted.
Anything that you would want to add to Dhanshu to this, or share from your experiences?
No, I think I'm a clear example of like how ISB looks at the application holistically. Like I had applied to ISB with a sub 690 score, if I can say that, and I got selected in round 1 itself. So because ISB looks at the entire profile, like the career growth that I had in the initial years and the kind of responsibilities I took. So these were the standing factors in my application when I had applied to ISB. But GMAT was much below the average GMAT score for my batch. So if you feel you don't have a good profile, then it's always better to have a higher than mean GMAT, which is 720, 720, 30, something like that. But if you have an outstanding profile, ISB will take that into consideration, and GMAT will not be the only factor in your selection process.
All right. I think there is some discussion happening over the live chat regarding your previous comment regarding exceptional profiles, right? So I think that is a bit sort of maybe misunderstood with by the viewers. So maybe Sudhanshu, if you could just sort of elaborate a bit on what did you actually mean when you say that you need to have an exceptional profile to get into ISB?
Okay, so it's not only about academics that gets you admitted into ISB, right? Whatever you are doing, even if it is a hobby, even if you are starting a company, even if you are a designer, if you are getting noticed on a national scale, if you are exceptional in whatever you are doing, ISB will try to get you, right? So we have had people from NEFT who are exceptional designers, like people know them, like they had such a profile, like they have worked with some of the best firms like Ogilvy or some other design firms. ISB will try to select you.
Okay, let me sort of rebut this a bit. So if let's say if there is a normal person, with a normal career and a normal sort of career graph, right? Average academics, average growth so far. Do such people have absolutely no chance of actually getting into ISB?
No,
Maybe
I wouldn't say that.
Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in that case, there are 3 things which generally ISB looks at. One is your acads, one is your extracurriculars, one is your job, right? So for someone who does not have very great academics, like you are not amongst the top percentilers, right? Someone who does not have a very high, working for a reputed company, then you still have a factor that you can score very high in GMAT or GRE, right? This will make your profile stand out. So you have to play on mainly 3 factors, right?
Okay.
And if you are exception in 2 out of 3, you are an ideal profile, right?
All right. I think Harsh wants to add something here. Harsh.
Yes, I think, yeah. So first thing first, I think, and this is specific to the candidate's question on YouTube comment, we generally try to undervalue our achievement and maybe over-index on others' achievement or overvalue them. So it's not that people who actually like are exceptional people, it's not that your profile is bad in general cases. So the right, like my guidance would be like talk to few people around about your profile, like at least talk to some alums who are recently graduated, like 1 year, 2 year, and see how's your profile, how your profile fits into overall profile. Please do that before like judging yourself whether your profile is good or bad. I think that's first and foremost thing. And once you do that, then maybe other things you can try is basically look at all the entrants of ISB last year and try to see their LinkedIn profile and try to see what you have done, what you have not done. Because a lot of time what happens if you come from a very good corporate, but your experience is not good, then that may not add a lot of value. But even if you come from a, let's say, startup, but your experience has been very rich, so that does factor in during interview processes. So don't think that your profile maybe like would be bad or something. If you have done a good, like if you have been honest to your career and has put in hard effort to make your career good, I think you still have a chance. So this is how I'll put it. Like don't get biased towards like being an exceptional person to get into ISV. That's not a case. Yeah.
All right. I think just to add to this, maybe from my perspective, having worked with so many candidates, it's uh, exceptional is absolutely right. When Sudhanshu portrays that, you have to portray yourself as an exceptional person. But the understanding or the definition of that being exceptional is something that you derive for yourself, right? So if you can show that you have been or you have performed exceptionally in the things that you have done, right? Which you cannot do until unless you believe it yourself, right? So if you don't do that, then it would become much difficult for you to actually go through the competition that ISB has, right? Because at the end of the day, ISB receives thousands, probably tens of thousands of applications every year, and ends up selecting only 900 people every year, right? So the selection rate is very, very low. So you have it often comes down to the way you describe yourself or the way you present yourself, right? Which also ties in very nicely with the next set of the next part of the session that we have, and that is regarding the essays, right? So when it comes to the essays, this year ISB has 2 questions. One is about what value do you add to the cohort, and what are your short-term, long-term goals, and how will ISB actually help you? So based on your experiences, based on your own applications, how would you guys suggest people to sort of address these questions or approach these essay questions? Maybe we start with Sudhanshu this side.
So essay is a very important factor in where your application get shortlisted, right? ISB gets too many applications, and the first point where the shortlisting happens, it is through these essays only. So the things that you have to, you should be very particular about while writing essay is you should write these essays yourself, right? Because these essays should reflect what you actually as you are as a person. You should talk to alums, you should talk to experts who are expert in those fields, but in the end it should reflect what you are as a person. So for that's why you have to be very truthful about these essays. You have to write about your short term and long term goals, and it should truly represent you, because in interviews you will be asked question about these essays, and the people who are sitting on panel, they will gauge you very thoroughly. So this is a very important thing.
All right. Anything that you would want to add, Shikha, maybe to this?
Sure. So I'll just add from my own experience, right? So on the point of being very honest, so that's I think like one huge takeaway. Like people might get tempted to write fancy things. Like so in our time we had to write something on, a leadership style, which tied into the question of how we'll add to ISB cohort. And I had written something like about a trait and then given an example from my work life, right? So in a 40-45 minute interview that I had, around 20-25 minutes went into just that one example because I was grilled on it to the very last level that, okay, you've written about this, explain it to us. It even became like a sort of a mini case where I'm doing like splitting the numbers that I had quoted and everything, right? So they drilled upon it to the maximum possible level, which I had also not really imagined, right? So just be very honest. Like you, of course, need to bring out the best factors about yourself so that the school sees that okay, this is the value addition that you'll do. But also do not, just people might have that tendency to write fancy things or just quote in some examples which they might not be able to defend. And the issue then that'll come is when the alums interview you, they can pick up literally anything either from your essays or from your like whole application and drill you on it, and then they will know that you're lying, right? So do not lie. That's like one thing. And the second thing is to research well. So about the short term and the long term goals, you might have something in mind that okay, this is what I want to do for the next 5-10 years when I'm out of ISB, right? So the question as to how ISB will help you, I think researching on it, which you can do by talking to alums. Like, so there are things that you'll get out of the web, out of the ISB website, that these are the things that are happening. But talking to alums, I feel you get a sense of, the things that are actually happening on campus, right? Which you won't find probably on Google or anywhere else. So talk to a lot of alums, try to get in that perspective of what really is happening on ground and how it ties to what you want to do after ISB. So I think that's the other thing I think that would be very helpful.
That makes a lot of sense. Harsh, a very quick question because you've been an alum
Yeah,
for almost like the longest time here,
7 years.
7 years, right? So there's definitely going to be a lot of people who would have reached out to you to get comments to understand more about ISB and understand what kind of offerings does it have and stuff. What do you think, or where do you think are the biggest mistakes which people make when reaching out to alums? Uh, Maybe in terms of not reaching out correctly or not asking the right questions or anything else that you have
Yeah.
seen based on your experience.
So I think a lot of people don't even reach out to alums. Like that's how I have seen. Um, uh, and there is so much information which is available with alums. I think those generally help. The second thing is when they reach out, I think even when they reach out, typically what I have seen is like asking a right question is important because see, if you look at from like the alum perspective, like there are a bunch of messages they get every day and they might not know you personally as well, or they haven't, most of the time they haven't met. I'll give you an example, honestly. So when I was applying to ISB Hyderabad, so I was coming from Hyderabad airport to, I used to stay in Hyderabad. So I was coming from Hyderabad airport to Madhapur, which is my home back then. And in the bus, I had some ISB alums as well. So I heard them interacting with each other. So I thought maybe like it's time for me to ask them to review my essay. And abruptly, I bumped to them, hey, can you please review my essay? I'm applying to ISB. So it was as bad as that. And they said, okay, I don't even know you. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think that's so again, like when you reach out to alum, I think you need to put your case as well. Hey, you are seeking help and this is your profile and this is specifically these are the inputs that you are looking for. I think that makes it simple. Like if I go to someone and ask, hey, do you see like I am hypothetically, let's say, I am looking to start maybe like a company after ISB, and this is my background. Do you think like how ISB can help me? What are the courses that can help? I think these are pointed questions. So don't go abstract when you go to alums. And if you want to go to abstract, then go to someone who you already know. because there is more chance that you will get a good good answer from them. But if you go to an unknown person with a very open-ended question, expect a lot of open-ended answer that might not just help you.
All right. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that. Coming to the next part of this, right? So the three of you
Yep,
went
I
into
think
ISB. Sorry.
that's pretty much, yeah.
All right. So now coming to the last part of this with respect to the careers, right? So the three of you, all of you went to the same college, right?
No.
Now, when Shikha, you became a consultant, Harsh became a product manager, Sudhanshu, you started working in a startup, right? So can you help us understand a bit about what kind of uh, career options that are available or possible with the ISB MBA? And what kind of resources does ISB maybe provide for these different areas?
So the best thing about ISP is the moment you get selected, right? Alum session starts happening, right? And these alums are the like more than who have graduated. These alums are people who have graduated more than 10 years ago, and they are at senior level position in multiple organizations. So these people come, they share their experience, they share their like how they reach to that position, and they give you idea about the multiple roles that are possible after you graduate from ISP. So that is the best thing. And the possible career options is the majority chunk of people from ISB get hired as a consultant, some of the best consulting firms throughout the globe. And the second is in the product manager role. And after that, the finance roles and the boutique consulting, the uh, something like finance, investment banking roles, something like design roles, something like senior leadership position in startups. These all kind of roles also come at ISB. Be it in some of the BFSI, large BFSI players like banks, some of the large e-commerce players, some of the largest manufacturing hubs of companies of India.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of career opportunities, ISB gives you a very wide range of opportunities. And the best thing about ISB is the dedicated career advancement service team, which is a ISB team which helps each and every student of ISB to get their relevant role. They will map you. They will be very much involved in the entire interview process, and they help you step by step to reach that stage.
All right, makes sense. Shikha, maybe coming to you with a more direct question here and a much more I think, much more interesting question for most of the crowd, right? Because you have gotten into a consulting career, right, which is probably almost everybody, or at least 50% of the people who go to ISB want to be in that particular roles. So could you help us understand what kind of options or what kind of resources are available at ISB, which maybe talking about you taking your personal case, like which helped you get into a consulting role post ISB? Could you shed some light on that?
Sure. So in terms of the kind of help that you'll get from ISB to get into consulting, so like the biggest aspect, which Sudhanshu mentioned, like the biggest aspect is the alum aspect, right? So that I think is the USP in terms of the kind of help you get at ISB. So the kind of perspective that you get from alum that actually helps you understand, like, okay, do I even want to do consulting? And if you get that clarity, yes, then how to go about it? What are the things that can be done? So tapping into that huge reservoir of alums, so you get a lot of help from them. So then there's like sessions organized by CAS and even by consulting club, right? So they map you. So during the placement session, the consulting club maps you to alums, right? So that's the other thing which comes in very handy. They map you to alums who will help you with preparing your CV, right? So they initially map you only for the CVs, but then what you can do on yourself is that you stay in touch, which I did. Like I stayed in touch with those alums. I was like, hey, can I get your number? And once I'm done with this, can you just look at this again? Then I, kind of nudge them again that, hey, can you just tell me if there's something I can do about the interview and that kind of a thing? And like alums are the most wonderful people. I'm going to be very honest with you. Like that's one thing I've realized at ISB. So just staying in touch with them, they've been very helpful. So that way, the consulting club also plays a role. They also have like so CAS and consulting club, they have sessions where they give you an idea of, how you can prepare up for different things. What are the different study materials or the kind of things that you should be going through? There are some things you should be up to date with. And then the next thing is in terms of the cohort that you have. So since, like you said, a lot of people from ISB want to get into consulting, right? So there's a whole lot of people who are actually seriously prepping for this. So it is a great opportunity to tap into for preparing for your, the mock interviews and case preparation. So that also comes in very handy. So you can have your case buddies, you can practice cases with different types of people, and you get a lot of different perspectives, right? Which is very helpful because every interviewer is different, right? So that brings in a lot of perspective. So tapping into that potential of your cohort is the other thing that I think is really helpful.
And a very quick follow-up question, right? Just a very, very short answer to this, maybe. Because so many people go into ISB with the idea of consulting, right? Obviously, consulting is it may not come true for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Becoming a consultant is fine, but apart from consulting at consulting firms, what other options are available if you're looking at strategic roles, or if you want to be in consultant like roles? What
Right.
are the different roles that are available for candidates? If you could shed some light on that.
Sure. So there's a lot of internal strategy roles also. So at brands like, let's say, bigger brands like Unilever and all. So my friends have gotten placed there. They're doing internal strategy roles there. So a lot of general management roles, which you call, right? So that is the other opportunity that I feel. Then there's also roles like product marketing and those roles, which are also again strategy roles. So a lot of people go in there also. So these are roles which again tie in very closely to, working in strategy, but not exactly as an external consultant, but you're doing it for your own firm. So there's a lot of firms that visit, firms of different scales that visit. Like there are big ones like Unilever and all, but there are like smaller firms as well. But a lot of opportunities in that term.
All right, makes sense. Thank you so much for that. Harsh, maybe coming to you very quickly, because you also represent an area which is super, super popular during these times, right? You're working as a senior product manager, and product management is often, when we talk to candidates these days, it's almost like the next consulting in terms of popularity, right? So could you help us understand a bit about what exactly at ISB helped you get into product management, and what kind of roles that exist within this domain today, which people can look at when they are looking at product managerial roles as such? I believe you are on mute. Sorry.
My bad. Yeah. So I think first let me answer the first part of the question, which is how ISB helped me get into product management. So I majored in two domains. One was marketing and second was information technology. Unlike I took a major in IT was because most of the courses I felt were related to technology, mostly strategy, tech, marketing, building new products. So I think those really helped me. And I see some of the things which I learned I still use. Like there's a course on ML and AI, which helps. There's a course on data statistics that helps new product launch. I think those things help. Marketing I chose because I always feel that product management is very close to marketing. And that's the sense I got. Basically, there's no one that goes and says, but that's the sense I got. It's not that I stuck to that, but I also took up some finance courses, only specific ones which I thought maybe mostly from the learning perspective, nothing else. Like M&A I took, but mostly as a learning. So net, I think there is a good distribution of course which is available that will help you get basics of product management, or at least product management in software. That's first part. The second is mostly in market. If you see, there are a bunch of people who graduated from ISB and are product managers now. In fact, most of the people who did MBA and moved into product management, if you look at in industry, majority are from ISB. There are few from IMA, few from IMB. That's pretty much that's how it is. And there are a bunch of folks who are without any MBA as well, and that's not bad, honestly. Okay, so now and when you see so many people who are from same college and into the same industry doing good, I think that gives the sense basically like there are so many people doing it and you can always reach out to them for help or any information. So I think that also helps being at ISB and doing a product management course. Um, and given that and product, yeah, I think this is broadly, I'll say. The second question, I think, Piyush, can you please repeat the second part of the question which you had?
So it was more about what kind of roles that exist today in product marketing or product management itself, right? Because usually people would only talk about becoming a
Hmm,
product manager, but I think that's a
hmm.
very narrow view of the entire industry or the
Yes.
sector itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it generally see product management, I think is still evolving, unlike other fields like consulting or maybe software development. So it started with people who will just build product or manage looking at product. Then it pivoted towards building strategy around product and taking business decisions. Now I see like there are vertical PMs, like people who are very good in data, people who are very good in growth, people who are very good in monetization, or people who are very good in e-commerce. I think those niche are coming up, like people who are good in SaaS. So basically, they are SaaS PMs. They know end to end of SaaS. I think those verticals are coming, but again, so something like this, like there is, so each role like needs a basic thing. Like these are the basic things that you need, and again, it's a T, and then you can build like you have the basic thing, and then you can build your T around. So I think now PM role is getting very specific to this T structure. It was earlier horizontal, now it is becoming T because whatever specialization that you bring into the uh, that you build, you will get role specific to that.
Okay,
And
makes
like
makes sense.
generally, I have seen MBA help you build that T, like build that base. And T is something that you build based on your interest, opportunities, and your skills that you have
Mhm.
acquired over a period of time.
All right, makes a lot of sense. Now, coming to something which is a bit more crucial, or in terms of when people start preparing for their applications, what have you seen in general that are the biggest mistakes that people make while preparing for their applications? Uh, Maybe in terms of you know timing of the application or talking to people or anything that you've seen in terms of where people start making mistakes when it comes to applying. So maybe we start with Harsh.
Hmm. Uh, let me just think maybe like 10 seconds because this is
Okay,
because I
then
have so many examples
then maybe we move to
because
Shikha
it
for
takes
this,
time.
and
Yeah,
then we come back to you.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sure.
Shikha, if you
So,
yeah.
okay. So, I think in terms of the kind of mistakes, firstly, which you mentioned was timing, right? So some people get up very late and they're like, okay, the application deadline is 1 week after this, and I have to prepare the application and write the essays. So I wouldn't suggest that because you have to build out like a very compelling story for yourself. So maybe don't do that. Like if you know that you want to get in, you can either move your application to the next round or probably think a bit earlier. And the other thing which I also feel that people do not do a lot was in terms of interacting with alums. So I'll tell you my example also. So I didn't have like a lot of people who I knew per se from ISB, and reaching out to alums like cold messaging on LinkedIn and all, I felt a bit weird doing that, right? Because I was like hesitant and I didn't know what the response would be or would there be any response. So initially I did not like even take the pain of messaging someone on LinkedIn or something like that. But then at one point I realized I do need some inside, okay, and
Mhm.
those are not available online. And that's when I did actually start to kind of reach out and I tried to talk to people. Could not talk to a lot, but I still felt that even if I was able to get like one or two people to talk to me, that was really helpful to add certain aspects in my application which showed the school that I had actually done a lot of research and I'm genuinely interested. So I think
Mhm.
in terms of mistakes, these are the two I feel. And of course, like be honest on your application. I think I've already stressed enough on it, right? So these three, I think, are like things that I feel you should be very careful about and be doing.
All right. Harsh, are you thoughtful?
Yeah, I think
Perfect.
Shikha beautifully covered all the aspects. I'll just add one more thing. Like, and this is precursor to everything. I felt like most people actually don't know why they are applying, or they
Okay.
just apply because of FOMO. I think that's how I feel. And what they end up doing is like they put half-hearted effort, And that reflects in their timing, that reflects in the preparedness and maybe like preparing the essay. And by the time, since they are not clear, they end up losing the energy to continue further. So I think first and foremost is basically understanding why you are applying for ISB or such kind of course, which is an outcome of basically what you want to do in life. So, and how that can help is basically once you know what you want to achieve, maybe broadly know what you want to achieve, then comes the second thing, like why ISB is a right fit. And that is where I think like people who are already part of the system or they have gone to ISB can help you basically take that decision whether ISB is a good school for you to apply or not. There is online code material information also available. There is people who have gone through the process. They know in and out. I think that is where people can help. But understanding like why you are applying for ISB, I think it's equally important than the whole application process. And I think Shikha covered that already. So that's a bit.
Right. Sudhanshu, anything that you think you have seen people make mistakes on in their life?
So I would say when you are giving 4 to 6 months for your GMAT preparation and you are planning to write your essays in 1 week, I mean that is not justified, right? So the GMAT, the
That's correct.
essay, and the interview, they are both, they have some weight assigned to it in your final selection, right? So I would say the entire essay writing thing, it is a very crucial step in the overall application process. And for this, you need to prioritize on your thoughts, right? You need to have a structured thoughts. I remember when I started my application process, like I was thinking all through everywhere. Like I was not including the things that actually mattered. Rather, I was focusing on things which were not that important or maybe, not that impactful. And here comes the expert guidelines, expert help, be it through some alums or through some expert who has been doing or who has expertise in writing the essays. This person will help you structure your thoughts. This person will help you prioritize on your achievements, on the impact of those achievements. So I think essay is a very crucial thing in the overall application process.
Makes sense. Now, we've also seen, we've been working with ISB applicants for the last 3 years. We have done more than 40, 50 applications. And also, we also focus a lot on international schools. What we have often seen is that, I think all three of you highlighted very strongly on the aspect of how important it is to talk to alums and get their feedback, get insights from them about the school. Uh, and this is an area which is very difficult to actually manage because not everybody will have access to alums on a personal level, right? So candidates are supposed to be, this is part of the process itself that you're supposed to reach out to people. You're supposed to connect with alumni to get, as Shikha called it, the insider insights about the school, about what kind of facilities do they offer, what kind of resources do they offer, do they even align with the kind of goals that you have, right? Uh, and we have often seen that people make a lot of mistakes in these particular areas, that they do not research enough about the school or they do not connect with the alums, as rightly pointed out. Now, towards the what we have done is we have come up with a new project, which we call the ISB Tripod. And ISB Tripod essentially is a 1 month mentorship program that we have designed, where applicants get to connect with uh, alumni from ISB so that they can learn more about the school, so that they can learn about, be better informed about the school itself before they even apply to ISB, right? And this becomes very important because essentially you are talking to people who have been there, who have done the same things, who have possibly been very close to making the same mistakes that you are planning to make unknowingly, right? So connecting with these people, connecting with alumni who have been in your shoes prior to you, that we believe is super useful and critical to actually creating successful applications. Now, this ISB tripod itself, this is what we are planning to have is basically build out small cohorts which are applying to ISB and build a dedicated community which answers any questions or any doubts that you have about the applications itself, right? And at the same time, increase engagement through alumni and make alumni a key part of this, what we want to do is essentially we'll connect you with 3 responsible alumni who will be completely responsible for the cohort. And they will conduct multiple informational seminars and webinars for you to remain updated on ISB and how ISB could actually help you out. So these alumni, apart from these webinars, they will also have personal connects with you, with the candidates, so that they can clarify your doubts on a more personal level. Understanding your background, understanding where you come from, and what do you want to do in the future, and how ISB would actually fit into that, or maybe it doesn't fit into that. But they will give you very, very honest and realistic advice about how you could prepare better for ISB applications. Now, the cohort that we are launching, the first cohort for this, it will start on 2nd of October. It's a month-long program, so it goes on the entire of October with the webinars and the private connects that you will have. And the charges, obviously, we are starting with the registrations today. And for the next 5 days until 18th of September, we'll have early bird registrations. You can see the link for ISB Tripod in the chat, and feel free to explore that. And meanwhile, what we can do is we can start taking up some questions from the audience that we have here. Now, one question we have is essentially about GMAT scores. So coming back to ISB, if let's say somebody has a very low GMAT score, right? So ISB average GMAT score is somewhere around 710, right? If let's say somebody has 640 GMAT, right? Would you suggest them to apply to ISB irrespective of the score, because ISB has a very holistic evaluation process, or would you suggest them something else? Maybe Sudhanshu, you would want to take this.
Again, so I would say, I would reply to this using a risk reward thing, right? If you feel you can prepare hard and get a much better GMAT, the probability of your success will increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even with a 640 GMAT, if you have an outstanding profile, there is a probability that there is a high probability that you will get selected. Mm-hmm. But if you want to even get on a safer side and you want to increase this probability even more, it's always better to have a higher GMAT. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll describe my case. When I had applied to ISB with 680 GMAT, I was apprehensive till the day I got my offer. Right. I had a good profile. That. Yes. So, but if I had something like, 720 or 730 GMAT, I would have been more confident. So I ultimately got selected with a 680 GMAT, but, just to improve your chances of selection, it's always better to have a high GMAT.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, we have also talked a lot about, the great career options that are available with ISB. What would you say about, let's say, what could be potential career options that are not that great at ISB, to be very honest? Maybe Harsh or Shikha, if you would want to take this question.
Maybe let me start. Yeah. So during my time, I think I didn't see a lot of finance role coming in. Mm-hmm. There were sparsely some roles that came, but that was pretty much like maybe like 10 odd, 15 odd. So that's one thing. I don't think like ISB specifically has a lot to offer when it comes to finance. There are CAs who get into ISB definitely. They either go to general consulting, or they go to consulting, or they go to management, general management, or some of them have become VCs as well. So that is
Shikha,
how it is.
Shikha, has that changed when you went, because you graduated recently? So has that something which has changed at ISB? Or is there a particular area in finance which is not?
So that's what I was going to add, that probably it has improved since Harsh's time, because this year around we had like, I would say a good enough. So maybe, so consulting PM, they are of course like the bigger ones, right? So if you compare it to them, the finance roles were lesser, but still there were, I feel, a lot of opportunities with, in terms of, there were banks coming in. There were also like IB roles that were coming in. So that I think considerably was quite better, because even going in, a lot of my friends had this doubt that, BFSI opportunities wouldn't be as high. But when actually the companies came onto the portal, we realized that there was still like a good enough chunk of firms that were coming in. Like there were some top and good firms like Credit Suisse, all those as well, right, in the mix. So I feel the situation was much better. Of course, not comparing it to, let's say, consulting, where you will have like, of course, X hundred number of firms, but still good enough. So if just summarizing in terms of what are like the top opportunities or like the top firms that are coming in where you can apply. So those would of course be in terms of there were roles in consulting, PM, finance also good enough this year, I feel. Then there was also around data analytics, those were also, and marketing. So these five for sure, a lot of opportunities. Others also there were there, but of course the number of firms coming in would be lower.
Mhm. Okay. Harsh, you wanted to add something to this?
Yeah, yeah. Just want to add. I think I spent enough time after ISB, and this is my learning. So it's not like like people generally should not see it as what you get just after ISB. I mean, there are people who get what they wanted just after ISB, which is fair. I think bunch of people get. People are there who, and like there is cohort, like all set of users. There are people who wanted, let's say, to get into McKinsey, BCG, but they could not got selected. So they either went to some other consulting or maybe to some other role. And eventually they figured out their way to consulting as well. There are people who do not get the role which they wanted, or and so they took up a role which was close enough to the dream role, and even like in 6 months or a year they pivoted to the better role. Or there are people actually who got what they wanted. They spent 2 years into the role. They didn't like the role, so they moved back to something else. So it's not that once you like that whole placement season is like a hard written thing in stone. You can still make changes as long as you are, how do I say, like you are clear what you want to do, you're enjoying what you want to do. I think there is enough scope even after ISB to make changes.
Mhm. All right, that makes a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
think
sense.
that's something people generally don't like consider when they apply to ISB. So I think it's good to just remember that.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Uh, a quick question is, I see a question regarding, if somebody is already in the domain that they want to be in the future as well. Let's say somebody is already in a product management role, right? And they also want to remain in the product management role post their MBA. Is it a good idea in general to go for an MBA? And what could be potential reasons for them to justify an MBA in such a case?
Mm. Is this
Sudhanshu,
question
maybe
to me?
you would want to take?
Yeah, Sudhanshu, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, my prior MBA experience was in analytics. I worked with Fractal Analytics, one of the best analytics firm in India. Then I worked with EvalueServe, another one of the best analytics firm. So I had already this basic understanding and basic work experience with analytics. But when I went to ISB, the entire set of the courses that I took and the understanding that I got in just 1 year. And third thing would be the network that I built at ISB. So these things are very, very crucial in next level of career growth. And I would say because of that knowledge, because of that wider understanding, it helped me land in this head of analytics role at such a young age. And with the network that I formed at ISB, it is helping me very enormously with my community learning thing. So, for example, if I don't know about something, earlier I used to Google, or I had limited set of friends who were in that domain. But currently, my batchmates from ISB, they are in such roles who are doing such things, and they are just a phone call away from me. I just call them and I just try to understand like the issues that I'm facing, and they help me resolve such things. So
Mhm.
even if you are planning to transition in the same role post ISB, the community, the ISB community, the alumni network, it will be very, very helpful throughout your life.
Mhm. All right,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I think we are almost towards the end of the session. We already spent almost an hour discussing this, so this has been a very, very fruitful session. I would just want to have, let's say, some rapid fire questions based on the questions that we have had in the chat box, right? So maybe just we convert into that. Whoever sort of wants to answer first, please keep your mics open and we can have that, right? So what would be, let's have the first question. So what would be a good GMAT range to apply to ISB with?
Maybe I think lowest it can go is 620, 630. But
But
again,
would
you
you
need to
suggest somebody
compensate.
to 620 to apply
No,
to ISB?
maybe like if with a reasonable profile, good reasonable profile, I'll suggest 680. And then you
Okay.
can upward is 800, I guess. Yeah.
All right. With respect to GRE, would you have any suggestions? The average GRE score at ISB is 328. So maybe Shikha, uh, would you have any suggestions in terms of what should be a reasonable score to apply with?
So GRE, I think around 320. I mean, but again, like very subjective, right? So
Mhm.
try
All
to
right.
keep it in a safe range is how I play.
In terms of, let's move to the next part. In terms of work experience, right? What would you say is, a good range to be in, or does having a long work experience, let's say 8 years, 10 years, is that a detrimental aspect of your application? So, Sudhanshu, if you want to take this.
No, I don't think so. People of our cohort, like there were many people in our cohort who were in senior leadership and they had come for MBA after 12 to 15 years of work experience. And the
Mhm,
kind of job they got after ISB was at par or even better. Right.
mhm,
So I don't think age consideration is a major thing here. But if you're talking about the average age, it is 3.5 to 4 years. So if you are applying after 3.5 or 4 years of work experience, that is the majority of ISP batch.
all right. Sounds good. A quick question I see is regarding extracurriculars, right? So, as working professionals, obviously, you don't have a lot of time most of the times. So, what kind of extracurricular activities can you engage in, which can help you strengthen up your profile?
Okay. So I was actively involved with an NGO called Mentor Me India for almost 3 years.
Mhm,
So I was doing this first, I care, giving
mhm.
back to the society. Second thing, building my profile.
Okay,
Right.
Shika, would you suggest something, because you were in a very very hectic job as a consultant with
Yeah,
McKinsey?
yeah.
So,
But I'll agree with Sudhanshu. So even I was kind of volunteering with the firm.
mhm.
Again, the giving back aspect. But apart from it, so I did indulge in things like, calligraphy and all that, which did help with the interviews as well. So
All right, Harsh, what would your
Yeah.
position be with respect to
Yeah.
extracurriculars?
So mine was little different. I used to trek and used to organize few treks. So little different, but this is how I see like extracurricular is not something that you should push yourself for. Ideally, you should enjoy that a lot. And in
Mhm,
that process, you should be able to help people, like give people back. I think the measurement of extracurricular is something that you like and how much you are able to improve other life. I think,
mhm.
and improving other life is becoming the impact part. And if you are able to do it significantly, which means that you have spent enough time doing that extracurricular thing, I think that is good enough. Yeah.
All right. I actually want to have a follow-up question here, because this is something which goes around very very often. Uh, how much important is having an NGO experience, right? Because a lot of people talk about you should have an NGO experience before you apply for an MBA because it will improve your profile. Is that something which you consider to be true, or is that something that you would say is more of a bastardized sense of understanding what ISB is looking for or B schools are looking for?
Yeah, I think NGO is not important. First thing, like it's not a checkbox.
Okay.
See, the thing is, I'm going back to what I said again. Like, what is important is how much impact you were able to create to the society or to the community that you belong to. It could be a business community. Let's hypothetically take it's a business community and where everyone is making money. There's no NGO. But if you are able to help that business community do better, I think that itself is a good impact. So instead of looking at the checkbox, look at how you are able to help people, how through
Mhm,
your interest area. And it's pretty much similar to any experience, honestly. Like even in our corporate life, what is measured is basically your role is definitely is important, but how much you are able to create impact. So
mhm.
regardless of which domain you come from, if you have good impact and you are able to show that in application, I think that's what matters.
All right. Anything that you would want to add, Shikha or Sudhanshu?
I completely agree with her. So it's not exactly a checkbox. So I started asking for this volunteering thing because I knew I was going to ISB, so I had time. So I've been doing it for the last 2 years, but this was not on my application, just to clarify.
Oh, okay. Sudhanshu, anything that you would want to add?
Again, I mean, like it is just something which you are doing out of interest, and it is not a necessary thing, right?
Mhm.
So I did this NGO thing because my entire education after class 10th was funded on a scholarship of NGOs. So it was more of a personal, personal interest thing rather than it was just for the sake of MBA. So it is
Mhm.
not absolutely necessary, but life
If
is
you
not
if you
only about
like
your,
it, yeah. If you
yeah,
like it, then you
life.
do it.
If you like it, then you do it. But life is not only about your work, right?
Mhm.
If you show there are some social aspects to it, there are some career aspects to it, there are some personal aspects to it. And in order to show that you are a diverse individual and the kind of how you interact with the society, doing something other in extra to the normal work that you are doing, where you are employed, where you are doing something that you are doing for your career growth, it is always great to have, right?
Mhm. So, before we close the session, I think you have realized that I have had a power cut here. But to close the session, any last piece of advice that you would have for candidates who are preparing for ISB this year?
Yeah, so essay is a very crucial part of the entire application thing, right? And you need to have answers to almost everything that you have written in that essay. I remember my ISB interview. 5 minutes of my ISB interview went on how do I cook a chicken butter masala, because I had written I like cooking in my essay as my hobby, and 2 minutes of it went on the importance of marination, and 2 minutes how I make it. So you have to be very, very particular about each and everything that you have written in your essays.
Right. That sounds
That's
great.
fair.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I used to eat chicken, I would have definitely asked you for the recipe. Uh, Harsh, any last piece of advice that you would have?
I think there are bunch, but thing is, I think start early. I think that's important. Have time for yourself because there will be a lot of iteration. You may not get, because of stroke of luck, you may not get the desired GMAT result as well. So have buffer, do a good planning. I think that's important.
All right. And Shikha,
Mhm.
anything that you would want to add uh, to end
I
our
completely,
conversation?
so this was what I was going to say, Harsh already covered it. Time your things well, just have a timeline very clear in your mind and give enough space for everything, I would say. All aspects are equally important.
All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I hope you guys like the live stream as well. So we are going to end the session here. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about ISB, about applications, about ISB Tripod. I believe it's going to be a very, very interesting sort of cohort-based learning program that we have introduced. And I wish you the best for your applications and hope to see you soon.
Yep. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you,
listening
Piyush.
in.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sudhanshu, and thank you, Shikha. Thanks, Piyush, for hosting
Thank
us.
you.
Yep. Bye bye.
Perfect. So we are not live anymore. We are